Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the History of Professional Wrestling. I am your host, Joe Monroe. Today, we're talking about a topic that combines two worlds that entertain, folks for generations: professional wrestling and comic books. Now, you're probably sitting there thinking, Joe, there's no way. Why would we talk about professional wrestling and comics? Those are two totally different things. I mean, one takes place in a professional wrestling ring. The other one is literally something that people used to call the funny books. Well, there's actually a lot of similarities. I mean, both are built around heroes and villains. Both create larger-than-life characters, unforgettable personalities. They use costume symbols and origin stories. Now, for those in the troll section, I know what you're going to say. Professional wrestling don't create origin stories. You're full of crap, you pencil neck geek. Go back to your basement. Most importantly, both make fans emotionally invested in the characters. Because at the end of the day, whether you're watching professional wrestling or reading a comic book, the thing that keeps you coming back isn't just the action, it's the story itself. It's wanting to know what happens next, wanting to see the hero overcome the odds, wanting to see the villain finally get what they deserve. That's the magic of storytelling, and that's what we're going to explore today. Why professional wrestling may actually be the closest thing we have to a live-action comic book. Again, trolls are probably going to say, well, we got, comic book movies. There's some I wish we didn't have. Before we go any further, I want to make something very, very clear. This isn't about saying wrestling is the F word, or that comics aren't supposed to be taken serious with their storytelling. That's missing the entire point. Nobody reads Batman because they believe Gotham is real, or nobody watches the Superman television series because they believe someone can actually fly. No, we enjoy these stories because they create worlds that allow us to escape our own world. Same thing with professional wrestling. Fans know they're watching a performance, but the emotional investment is real. The excitement is real. The memories are real. The connections to the characters are real. That's why someone can remember where they were when Hulk Hogan slammed Andre the Giant, or when Stone Cold Steve Austin, had his greatest rivalry with Vince McMahon or The Rock. That's why fans still debate who would win between dream matches, between which wrestler, or, dream battles between different comic book characters. Because the characters stay with us, no matter where we go. Every great story starts with conflict, and the foundation of almost every comic book and wrestling story is the battle between good versus evil. In comic books, we see superheroes and supervillains. In wrestling, we see baby faces and heels. The names are different, but the purpose is one and the same. Heroes give the audience someone to support, while villains give the audience someone to oppose. Neither one works without the other. Don't believe me? Sit here and think about this. Think about Superman for just a moment. Superman represents hope. He represents doing the right thing. But even Superman needs challenges. That's why villains like Lex Luthor and General Zod are so important. They test him. They forced him to prove why he is the hero. Same thing in wrestling applies. Would Hulk Hogan have become as big as he was without villains like Roddy Piper and Andre the Giant? Probably not. The hero is defined by the obstacles they overcome. One of the greatest examples of this is Stone Cold Steve Austin. Steve Austin became one of the biggest stars in wrestling because he represented rebellion. But rebellion only works when there is something to rebel against. Enter Vince McMahon. Their rivalry wasn't just wrestler versus boss. It was the everyday person versus the authority. It was a story millions of fans connected with. The hero representing something, the villain representing the opposite. That conflict creates a story. The best villains aren't always just evil for the sake of being evil. The greatest comic book villains believe they are right. Magneto believed that he was protecting his people. Dr. Doom believed he can only save the world. Actually, that's probably why we got Doomsday. More on that when it comes out. The Joker believes his chaos proves something about humanity. Wrestling villains work the same. Ric Flair didn't think he was the bad guy. He thought he was the best wrestler that ever lived, the GOAT. The NWO didn't believe they were destroying wrestling. They believed they were changing wrestling, and that they did. A great villain has a motive. A great villain makes you understand why they think they're right, even when you disagree. And I'm going to say this, half the time, you're probably going to agree with them because they have great points. Unless you agree with Thanos, then, yeah. And that's why some of wrestling's greatest rivalries feel like a big comic book battle. The Undertaker versing his opponents. Sting versus the NWO. Dusty Rhodes going up against Ric Flair. Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels. I can go on and on. These weren't just matches. They were chapters in a story. The match was the conclusion, but the story is what got the fans invested. The biggest connections, and probably one of the silliest, in someone's opinion, between comics and wrestling is the importance of presentation. Comic book characters are essentially recognizable. I mean, Superman with the S shield, Batman with his bat signal, Spider-Man with his mask. The visual identity tells you everything you need to know. Professional wrestling understands this perfectly. Look at The Undertaker. I mean, for crying out loud, the moment his music hits and that tall, dark figure walks to the ring, fans knew something was special about him. The hat, the coat, the slow movement, the darkness surrounding the character, everything told a story. He didn't need to explain who he was. The presentation explained it. Hence, presentation is key. That's exactly how comic book heroes and villains work. Masks are another huge connection. In comic books, mask represents the identity. Bruce Wayne becomes Batman. Peter Parker becomes Spider-Man. Mask creates a legend. Professional wrestling has embraced this for generations, especially in Lucha Libre. They treated the mask as a symbol of honor and tradition. Wrestlers like Rey Mysterio and Mil Mascaras became legends because their mask represented something bigger than themselves. Modern wrestlers still continue to this day, like Penta. Penta's mask isn't something he just, decides to put on and wear. It represents his style, his heritage, and his identity. Another major similarity is transformation. Comic book characters change over time. Batman today is way different from Batman decades ago. Spider-Man has gone through so many different eras, it's not even funny. Characters evolve. Professional wrestling characters also do the same. Steve Austin wasn't always Stone Cold. I mean, no, for crying out loud. He was stunning. He was superstar. He was the Stevester, just to throw that in there. And The Rock wasn't always the people's champ. He was Rocky Maivia, the blue chipper. Sting wasn't always Crow Sting. He was Surfer Sting. I can go on and on with different examples of that. The characters go through changes that make the fans invest even more. Think about Stone Cold. I mean, we mentioned stunning Steve Austin. Let's go ahead and mention the Ringmaster. The character just wasn't it. Let's be honest. However, a transformation came with the Austin 3:16 promo at King of the Ring. The attitude, the refusal of authority, suddenly he became an overnight sensation, something that fans have never seen before. The character of Stone Cold was born. The same thing happened with The Rock. Rocky Maivia was rejected by fans. They felt like he was being shoved down their throat. Instead of failing, the character evolved. He became arrogant. He became entertaining. Then eventually he became one of the most popular wrestlers and, I would dare say, actors ever. That is a comic book style character arc. One of the reasons comic books have survived for generations is because of continuity. Stories connect. Characters have history. Past events matter. Professional wrestling works the exact same way. Every rivalry has a history. Every championship has a legacy. Every character carries their past with them. Comic book fans love seeing characters interact. Marvel created an entire universe where characters cross paths, even the multiverse. Spider-Man can interact with the Avengers and interact with the X-Men all in the same world. Professional wrestling has also created the same type of shared universe. A wrestler's history follows them no matter where they go. A match from 10 years ago can influence a storyline for today. Another great example, factions. Comic books have teams like the Avengers, like the Justice League. Wrestling groups are the same thing. The Four Horsemen, the New World Order, D-Generation X, the Bloodline, or, Evolution. These groups work because each member brings something different. They create stories bigger than one individual. The Four Horsemen weren't just four wrestlers standing together. They represented excellence, arrogance, and dominance. The NWO wasn't just a group. They represented rebellion and change. The Bloodline, it wasn't just about family. It became a story about power, loyalty, and betrayal. Those are the same themes that you will see and find in comic books. Long-term storytelling is what makes fans stay invested. A casual viewer might watch, one match, maybe? But a fan who follows the story wants to know, what's going to happen next? How is the hero going to overcome? Will the villain get what they deserve? Will alliances survive? Will someone betray their friends? Those questions keep people coming back. The relationship between wrestling and comics isn't just a comparison. They have actually crossed paths many of times. Wrestlers have appeared in comic books. Comic publishers have created wrestling stories. Companies like WWE have partnered with comic publishers to bring wrestling characters into comic form because both industries understand the same thing. People love larger-than-life characters. Great example, The Undertaker, Kevin Nash, and even, simple stories like Behind the Curtain. Because at the end of the day, wrestling and comics are about imagination. They're about escaping reality for a little while. No matter how bad the world is, this is your escape. They're about believing someone can overcome the impossible odd. They're about heroes standing up against the villains. They're about stories that stay with us forever. A great wrestler becomes more than a person. They become a character. A great comic book character becomes more than ink on a page. They become an icon. And that's why these two worlds connect so well. Because both worlds understand that the greatest stories aren't always about what happens. They're about how they make us feel. So, the next time you're watching a wrestling match or picking up a comic book, remember, you're not just watching a fight. You're experiencing a story. And sometimes the best stories are the ones that feel larger than life. I appreciate you all joining me today. Leave a comment on what is your favorite comic book or professional wrestling storyline. And if you want to help out the channel, go check out the merch at our Redbubble store. I'll leave the link in the description below. I want to give a big shout out to Books, Brews, and Barbecue for always sticking by us and becoming very awesome. If you're in Somerset, Kentucky, go check out Books, Brews, and Barbecue. I'm actually there almost every Saturday, so come say hi. We'll all have a great time. Until then, thank you all so much, and always, always, always support professional wrestling. We'll see you next time. I still think it's kind of funny that Jim Cornette created his own comic book based off old wrestling tales.